Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Max Van Houten. I teach vocational agriculture at Lake Region Union High School. I guess I'd like to start by thanking Shelburne Farms for having us. Last time I was here was early May for the FFA State Convention. I remember seeing Richard here over at the Animal Barns. And I really appreciate what they do to offer this possibility for us and others to come and make connections with the earth. I'd also like to thank Catherine Sims from Green Mountain Farm to School, who couldn't be here today, but has done an incredible amount of work up in the Northeast Kingdom, and Lori Carr, who is also my partner in crime, who is now in Arizona. Okay, so there's 1,000 things I wanted to share from the year, and it's really hard to condense all of them into 6 slides in 10 minutes. And as a teacher, I know very well the virtues of expounding on just about anything. But striving to be a good teacher, I am trying my best to encourage questions at the end, and I'm going to try to just limit it and go with the old adage that pictures are 1,000 words. So the biggest challenge and accomplishment for this year was instating a composting system at the high school. I worked with Highfields Center for Composting in writing a grant to design and construct a compost drum. That's about a 5-foot diameter, 8-foot long, looks like a big whiskey barrel, that's made of cedar. It was designed with the help of James McSweeney, who is now out of Cambridge, Mass., and it was built by Richard Hudak. So I don't know if any of you know him. He's been very involved with composting north of Burlington. So, compost. Challenges. The first thing is buy-in, getting students to want to compost. I mean, I remember being in high school, I had friends that would just look at me and take something that, like a plastic bottle, and they just throw it in the trash. Just because they knew I'd say, hey, put that, and then I'd go take it out of the trash and put it in recycling. So that happens. There's a lot of that going on. So also another challenge associated with that is we probably only composted about half of what we could have. There's a lot of students that just, for one reason or another, just want to throw it in the trash because, I don't know, it's beyond me. Chore timing and logistics, that's a big one. I'm lucky to have a program where I can have students kind of go and attend these chores, but what exactly needs to happen when? How can we get the bins sanitized after bringing them to the compost and getting them ready for the next day and that kind of thing? There's a lot of logistical pieces there. And anyone who wants to set up composting at your school, I highly encourage it. It's an incredible way. The successes will far outweigh the challenges. But it's a beast. So unless you have someone who likes the art of taming beasts or is skilled in that art, you probably shouldn't go for it. Feedstock procurement is another big one. Where are we going to get the sawdust? Where are we going to use leaves? Where are we going to get the hay and whatever else we need to add to the system? The year-round function, as you can see, also the compost shed. We're building a shed late November. It's kind of catching up with us that I'm a teacher and not a full-time builder. So we struggled a little with that. Also, the smell was hard for some people. Okay, so sensory management there, which is a great learning tool, which I'll adjust in the success slides. Student accountability. I put that up, and then I realized, well, yeah, I mean, come on, high school teacher, what do I expect? There's always going to be extra work at the end of the day because somebody's going to skip their duty or tell you they did something they didn't. And then the biggest challenge I find, and this is kind of in my profession is learning opportunities versus work. At some point, the authentic practicing of a skill becomes just work. Okay, go turn the compost. Okay, I know you've done it 50 times. You're going to do it 51 times. Now I'm kind of a jerk and not a teacher, right? So that's a challenge. Okay, next slide. So successes, or as I just came up with, I'm always a dollar short and a day late, but if I were thinking ahead of time, it would have been a compost mince. Oh, I've got the worst jokes, too. So over 2,300 pounds of food, so over a ton of food scraps we diverted from the waste stream, which is great. It's wonderful. The challenge of having them work became community service for the high schoolers. Them actually doing the paperwork for that still hasn't happened, but the opportunity is there for them to do if they so want to. Okay, next slide. Another success is the compost from the first semester was actually completed. We're taking it out of the other end of the digester here, and it is ready to go. It wasn't ready quite to mix into garden soil or vegetables, but it was definitely ready to put into the orchard, so that was great. Then the authentic... So the authentic data collection. The kids are practicing. They're being scientists. They're collecting real data. They're assessing the needs. They smell the compost. And I wish you could see some of this data. You can see my finger there. In here, James and I had to adjust the thing. It wasn't working quite well, and it wasn't turning based on the design, because the way he designed it was not how it was built. So we had to install a big cedar 2x6 to get it to turn everything. And before then, it was smelling bad. It was wet, stinky. I mean, it was disgusting. It's quite frankly disgusting. It's anaerobic. I mean, and that's how you know a compost is going bad, is you can smell it. Some people are very touchy about it, but it was really, like, anybody wouldn't tell you this doesn't smell good for compost. But then we adjusted it that Friday. He came up after school, and we climbed in there and put this thing in, which was disgusting. And the next week, we saw our temperatures rise from 90 degrees to 135. We saw the smell gone by October 1st. I think that was like September the 25th or something when we did that. So it's real. I mean, it's real time. They're seeing the composting process. They're making the recipe themselves. They're troubleshooting. So it's really wonderful. Next slide, please. So students get to see the composting start to finish. We actually did get to finish our compost shed this year. Yes. So getting them to see something from start to finish is really important, kind of nutrient cycling that Richard mentioned earlier, that I think is just essential for anyone in the world to be understanding today. The experience of troubleshooting the compost, like I said, building soil, which I feel nobody, really a lot of the people in our world should know a lot more about building soil. So this is great for them to see and understand. They get to understand the microbiology behind what happens in the compost cycle and nutrient recycling. Finally, student leadership is a big one. This puts the ownership in their hands, and they have pride in understanding how we're taking care of the orchard, how compost fits in, where the recycling of food scraps comes from. So, yeah, that's it.
How did you decide on using a drum versus other systems?
Well, it's all enclosed, and that's a big concern, is keeping things out. I think that was probably the main factor. It's an enclosed system. The other thing is I worked closely with James McSweeney, who is designing a system like this for schools that he wanted to trial. So I thought that sounds like a really cool idea, let's give it a shot. And we wrote a grant, got the money to do it, and went with that.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm happy to talk with anybody more about composting at the lunch break if you have any questions. Thank you.